Hi, I'm Christopher Curtis, and welcome to the HIO Show. Stu Cowan's traveling with the Montreal Canadiens this week, but in the meantime, I've got Chris Allen from TSN 690. We've got Mike Boone, our very own HIO blogger, and Andy Bennett from the CBC. Before we get into anything serious about the trade deadline, I think let's all address the elephant in the room, the big bushy thing on Marc Bergevin's face. Any thoughts?
To me, to each his own. I don't care for it.
But, I don't know how quickly they're going to do a sequel to The Revenant, but he's got the inside track.
You think he's going to avenge?
Is it more Revenant or Castaway? Like I was kind of halfway on both of them, but
Well,
really,
where do you want to send Bergevin? Into the woods with bears or on an island by himself?
No, he's actually been in the foxhole too long.
Yeah, maybe a little too long.
With his buddy.
Do you not find it's comparable to when you see pictures of like you compare Obama at the beginning of his term to now, or when they do the president, like how much he's aged? I mean, what the heck happened to like the suave Marc Bergevin and the fitted suits and the great ties and the guy is like the beard, the rumpled shirt. I mean, he looks like somebody who's been working night and day to try and make a deal that didn't happen.
There's a fine line between hobo chic and actual hobo.
There's no chic. There was no chic.
It's a little Rasputin-esque.
It hurt me, really.
All right, on to something serious. At the trade deadline, Chris, Marc Bergevin, on the day of the trade line, said, we're moving in the right direction. Is that just something you have to say, or?
Well, he probably feels that. Listen, everything doesn't go as planned all the time. And I think, obviously, this happened to them, losing their number one goaltender. The team come out of the chute like a house of fire. And he's run into some difficulties, and he had to make some decisions on the fly. Some were good, some I'm sure he'd like to take a mulligan on, but I can see how people are upset, and I understand it. But every time something like this happens, it's not only get rid of the coach, it's get rid of the GM. Listen, I think Bergie needs his time here to really correct this thing. 4 years, I don't believe is enough for a GM to turn something around as bad as this was. Now, people might argue, well, what did he do? He tried to make some moves that obviously backfired on him. You have to manage the cap at the same time. We all saw what happened to Peter Chiarelli in Boston. Yeah, he won a cup, but then, boom, next thing he's out of there because he didn't manage the cap well. So there's so many things that go into it that I believe a lot of people just don't understand. And I know Marc Bergevin is doing everything he possibly can to better this team. And sometimes the moves you don't make are the best moves.
Well, that's a good way of segueing here. Andy, do you think that sometimes the best deal you make is the one that you say no on? I mean, years ago there was this story about how Bob Gainey almost traded the whole team to get Vincent Lecavalier, and that would have been a very bad decision. What do you think? Well,
I mean, we complain in this city when you deal players that turn around and have success with other teams, and everybody's all up in arms that you should have had this 2020 vision that this player was going to explode as soon as they left this city. So, yeah, of course the deal sometimes you don't make is maybe the best deal. And when you look at the Canadiens and who they have of value, I mean, you are really going to have to be giving up some of your team to get the kind of player that people want in this city. I mean, you hear Steve Stamkos in the mix all the time, but I mean, what are the Canadiens going to have to send the other way to get a Steve Stamkos? I mean, that is going to be a hefty price that I'm not sure if Canadiens fans would be willing to pay. I certainly don't think Marc Bergevin will be willing to pay. But look, this team is very obviously built to play around Carey Price, and we saw what happens when they don't have the NHL's best goaltender in there. So I think right now you just got to be patient right now. There's no other option really, and you're going to blow up the team and just wash everything away because Carey Price went down early in the season. I mean, they don't have much choice.
But you could make the argument that a year ago Bergevin was seen as this sort of untouchable figure. He's getting a little more flack now. Has some of the luster come off of his tenure?
Yeah, perhaps so. But again, I think most people probably give him a reasonably long leash, at least till the summertime, when I think the deals that weren't made on trade deadline day may be consummated closer to the draft. Like I can't believe that he's entirely in a stand-pat mode. I can't believe that he's happy with the roster he has now. What the remainder of the season, what is it, 19 games at this point?
Yeah.
I think he's going to make a very careful evaluation of what he's got and act accordingly. Like, I still, wild beard to the contrary, I have a reasonable amount of confidence that he knows what he's doing. And I think that's the general attitude.
And I think what a lot of people fail to understand too, and I've been a part of it, and I've seen guys come from other organizations to the city, and they fail miserably. And everybody thinks, oh, you get a player that has excelled somewhere else and you bring him in here. It's not easy to play here in Montreal, and some guys get here and they're like, whoa, it's a whole different animal. And if you don't succeed and you don't do well, the pressure becomes immense, and some guys can't deal with it.
Hence the beard, I think the idea of seclusion, going to another planet maybe and learning to become a Jedi Knight, that's sort of the look he has. Losing this much, Chris, when you're on a team that has lost this consistently throughout the year, is there a potential for long-term damage in that locker room?
Yes and no. I mean, you bounce back. You get the right group of guys in there. You get the goalie back in there. You make a couple of additions. You get healthy again, back on defense. Things can change pretty quickly. As far as losing, I've never been a part of a team that has lost like this team. I just haven't been. I think the closest I came was when I was with the Rangers. Even then, wasn't even close to that. The Rangers were bad at one point that season, and when I got there, things started to get a little bit better, but still, we lose some games here and there, but never anything like this. And even when I was here in Montreal, we lost 3 games, and it was like a nightmare. So I can't imagine what these players are going through and the toll it does take on them.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're going into an off season where it's possible we'll see a coaching change. It's possible we'll see a lot of turnover within the player personnel. A couple weeks back, Journal de Montréal columnist Régent Tremblay said that there's this conspiracy in the Canadiens to rid itself of Canadian players. He even made really some silly allusions to the Holocaust. Even in the advanced state that this country might think we're in, do we still revert back to these identity politics in this market? Is there still a danger in the off season of some of the media, this obsession with language?
He's been flogging that horse for decades, though. I mean, he's like a guy, again, a bearded guy walking through the park with a sign that says the world is coming to an end. I seriously doubt that Régent Tremblay has the influence that he used to have, and I can't believe that even a significant minority of Canadiens fans feels that way.
I think you're not wrong, but is it at least fair to say that it's the largest newspaper in the province? I think there is a segment that feels that way, and there is some pressure for there to be francophone representation on the team. Does that tie the team's hands a little bit?
I don't know if it ties their hands a little bit, but I think it would be definitely silly for us as the 4 Anglos to sit up here and say that that's not actually a factor, when of course it is in this city to have French players on this team. I mean, it means so much to the fan base, and they really do respond to the French Canadian fans. And certainly, if there's a French Canadian player with what this team needs, they're going to do everything they can. I think they probably would make more of an effort to get them than another team in the league. So I do think that's there. Do I think the pressure is lessening a little bit? Perhaps, but I think there's always going to be that desire here to have French Canadian players on this team and to have a coach that can communicate in French. And I don't necessarily think that's altogether a bad thing. I can see where the fan base is coming from when you have the rich history that you do have of this team in this city. And look, they're out there, so why not play here?
Chris, do we only talk about these kinds of things when the team is losing? It seems like winning might be the best antidote.
Obviously, they come up, but we didn't hear much of it this year. David Dehaene was the only French guy in the team. Now, there's 3, Denon, Matteau, and Dehaene if he stays here. But, I never like getting into the politics of this. at all when I was a player. My roommate was French, Guy Carbonneau, who I get along just great with. I hated this part of it. I understand it, but I also understand that when everybody was screaming and yelling that we need to have a French coach, the people who come out and protested probably don't follow the team, and that's what I don't like.
So people
they probably
projecting.
never go to a game,
Yeah.
and it's let's go down there and grow a beard and wave a sign.
If we can get to the, unfortunately, we almost have to start looking to the off season because the chances of making the playoffs are so slim.
They're non-existent. Come on.
It could happen.
Delusional.
They could still have. So you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah, and I could date Jennifer Lawrence. There's a chance. Come
You
on.
never know. You look good as a blonde. What are some of the things that Marc Bergevin absolutely needs to do in the offseason to maybe not improve the team, but at least stop the bleeding?
Big Sentiment would do. Another scoring winger. People say defense, but if this defense gets healthy, I think they're a pretty good defense. So I'd say another scorer and a Big Sentiment.
Our coach, peut-être.
Peut-être.
I think, and I'm not going to say that he has to fire Michel Therrien because I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to at least get 10 to 20 games at the start of next season to see what he can.
Yeah, I think so,
absolutely,
too.
because
He's not
if they
going to fire
kept
him, I don't think either.
No.
Why? I mean, why would you? If you were going to, you would have done it like 2 months ago and try and sparked that change, you know. But they didn't do it. They're going to keep him. They're going to give him that time to see what he can do with Carey Price, the way this team was built to be. But I don't think it would be out of the question to take a look at the rest of the coaching staff that has had, years to get things going, like the power play. And I know, Chris, we've spoken about this so many times, and you talk about how difficult it is to have a power play that really clicks. But at the same time, there has to be some accountability for some of the coaching.
Well, then it
errors
falls
this
on the head
season.
coach. I wouldn't put that on the assistant coach. He's the head coach. He's responsible for everything that goes on. I hate when they pass the buck on the assistant coach.
But what about like Craig Ramsey? They brought him in to be his consultant,
Whatever.
and the guy.
That is the coach's responsibility to make sure the assistant coach is doing his job and he's making. He's doing the job he hired him to do. I get that. But if it's not working, that's head coach has to step in and do the job. Tell me a head coach can't run the power play and can't run the. It's so crap. He can run the power play and he can run the penalty kill and run the team. Assistants, come on. It's just so he doesn't have to do a little extra work. That's all it is.
Save him from
and
skating.
change the D. I mean, what did they do back in the day? Scott, Toe Blake and all these guys. They stood behind the bench and they ran the team themselves. Now it's like video guy, this guy, someone to dry PK's gloves and Max's gloves. I mean, come on.
Mike,
Can you say in defense of Therrien that they've had a comparatively happy room through the season for all the losses? I mean, the teary departure of Devontae Smith-Pelly, what does that say about the spirit on the team?
I thought
and if
as
Therrien
well,
is
yeah.
terrible, I mean, there'd be evidence of discord, and DSP would be delighted to get out of here. That wasn't the case, so.
is some of it maybe just a personality issue where there's this big sign in the Canadiens dressing room: no excuses, pas d'excuses. And sometimes in those press conferences, it looks like we're coming up with a very roundabout way of explaining something that sounds an awful lot like an excuse. Is it that maybe Therrien hasn't thrown himself on his sword enough, or there hasn't been any admission of mistakes?
Well, doesn't the PR department totally script those press conferences? That's certainly my
I
impression
wouldn't
watching
know.
them.
But I mean, pas d'excuse, they have to say something when they come and meet us. I mean, what are they going to, everybody's like, oh, we're giving excuses. It's like, the guy has to talk to you every practice after every game. I mean, obviously there's going to be some sort of attempt to explain what's going on without, losing confidence in your players. So I do think their hands are a little bit tied there, and I think they get sort of piled on by that's an excuse. It's like, well, what do you want the guy to do? He's trying to explain to you what's going on while still maintaining confidence as head coach. So it's such a tricky position to be in, but certainly there's been a few excuses this year.
And the biggest one
Injuries,
of all, again,
goalie.
Carey Price being hurt. But it's a reality.
Exactly.
That when your top player's out, your team is going to hurt. But nobody expected it to hurt this bad.
Well, on that final semi-depressing note, we hope to see you next week when Stu will be back.